We all set, folks? So here we are for Committee of the Whole meeting. It's so great to see everybody. I know one of our commissioners is still suffering with some illness. It just seems like so much is going around like that. Luckily, though, most of us made it. We have a quorum, so I can officially call this Committee of the Whole meeting to order for the Kalamazoo City Commission for Monday, February 3rd. First order of business, roll call. Clerk Borling.
Commissioner Cooney.
Present.
Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Pradle.
Present.
Commissioner Wilson. Vice Mayor Hess.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. May I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Wilson from this meeting?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Pradle.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Cooney. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All right. Thank you so much, team. Communications, Manager Ritzma.
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right. Now is the opportunity for public comments for the Committee of the Whole meeting. Just as a reminder here, the public comment period is 2 minutes at the Committee of the Whole. If there's anyone in the chambers that wants to come forward and make a comment, please do so now. You have 2 minutes. State your name, whether you live in the city, and also a reminder there's a public comment meeting time frame at our business meeting as well. Hello.
Hello, everybody. 2 minutes. I got to talk fast. Okay. My name is Alfonso Harris. I live in the 900 block of North Burdick. This month is Black History Month. I'm proud that almost half the commission is black. Black history is not just important in the past, but also to live in today and tomorrow. Example of why black history is important. I was looking at artwork at the Kalamazoo Institute of the Arts, and a man I assumed to be a security guard, a job I've held numerous times, said, "I see you're admiring our artwork. You need to stand 1.5 feet away." This is why I support the KIA as well as Black Arts and Cultural Center. Non-black people need to work together with black people to make this city and this world better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chambers that would like to make a comment this evening? Seeing no one, we are on to the work of the evening. Manager Ritzma.
All right. Well, this evening we have Sherilyn Parsons, our Housing Development Supervisor, who will be presenting on the HUD Consolidated Plan. So, Sherilyn.
Ms. Parsons, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, for having us back. We are going to talk today about the 5-year draft consolidated plan. Before I get started, I do want to just make one statement. It's regarding events that happened last week, and so the City of Kalamazoo is reviewing the federal administration's executive orders as they come in, and what they may mean to city grants and subrecipients. We are meeting regularly to discuss these topics and keep up to date on what it means for the work being done in Kalamazoo. So, to start the presentation. As a reminder, we came to you in October 21st, to discuss the strategy and the plans of the 5-year draft consolidated plan. At that time, we hadn't had the plan drafted yet, but we did want to come and present the direction to make sure that we are staying on track for HUD timeliness and to meet the HUD requirements. Tonight, we have finalized the draft consolidated plan, and in a few moments, Julie's going to come forward and discuss with you the priorities, the goals, and the outcomes within the draft plan, and also discuss the 2025 action plan with you. I will conclude the presentation by laying out the next steps and the HUD requirements as it pertains to the completion of the consolidated plan and subsequent action plan. So we included in your package tonight the strategic and the action plan. Those plans are the culmination of this process, all the pre-planning that went into this process, minus the evaluation of performance. As a reminder, last year, 2024, was filled with public outreach. We conducted surveys to get community participation and feedback. We did online surveys, we did in-person surveys, we participated in events around the community. We also did individual surveys to each address in the core neighborhoods. We took data from sources such as HUD's comprehensive housing affordability strategy, census data points, the city's target market analysis, the county's housing strategy. We worked with the COC and the point in time counts. We worked with subrecipients, both past and present. We worked with nonprofits, businesses, and service providers. That probably is not an exhaustive list, but between the data and the outreach, combined, those things helped to inform staff how to write the consolidated plan and translated staff recommended activities, priorities, and goals. So the priorities were determined from both the data sets and the community feedback, along with consideration as to the amount of limited HUD funds we're receiving and the amount of the amount of other resources and funding in the community that can help the work that needs to be done in the community get done. Through the combination of the outreach and the data points, the following priorities continued to emerge. So community development themes that would increase access to safe, stable, and affordable housing, support populations described as vulnerable by HUD, foster safe and strong neighborhoods, support economic development and stability, and promote programs that help homelessness, as well as support commission priorities found within the Blueprint of Peace, which also do align with the community development priorities as well. From the priorities, there are activities, HUD-defined activities, that need to take place that will actually funnel up to satisfy the priorities. So within the activities, we heard over and over again, these are a more comprehensive list, but we heard over and over again, housing for special needs and homelessness, housing affordability, homeowner and property repairs, neighborhood development, beautification and violence preventions, and services that support vulnerable populations, youth, and special needs populations. So that is my recap, short and sweet, and I am going to invite Julie to come up to talk about the 2025 action plan and the 2025 through 2029 consolidated plan.
Thank you, Sherilyn, and welcome, Julie.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us back. As Sherilyn kind of went through the development themes, the activities that we heard, all sort of came together from the data we collected and the community outreach that we did. And from that, it kind of gave our direction for the priorities, goals, and outcomes in their draft form that's presented to you tonight and in the strategic plan. And just to make sure that we understand the full scope of the consolidated plan, it really comes in there are four sections. There's the housing and homeless needs assessment, the market study, housing market study section, which really was presented in October. Then those feed into the strategic plan, and then finally the annual action plan, which is how the activities we fund and the money and our dollars that we get annually. So that's what we're here about tonight, really, is the strategic plan and the annual action plan. So HUD requires, because we're an entitlement community, that we do this 5-year plan and we create these priority goals and outcomes. And so that's what I'm going to go over right now. As part of the priorities, we have to sort of establish levels of importance. This is a requirement for HUD. We can't just have 10 priorities and say every single one is important to us. Even though they all really are, we have to identify which are the most important. And so we have created 3 ways to look at the priorities in the plan: critical, important, and desirable. So critical is really about priorities that need immediate attention. They were ranked highest in our community outreach. They're supported by the data that we've collected. And it really means we need these things funded now and continually through this 5-year period. And then important priorities are those that are significant to the community and funding should be considered, but maybe don't rise quite to the level of that critical priority need. And then finally, desirable, those need attention, they have value to the community, but may be funded by others within the city and may not be recommended for funding through this 5-year plan, but we still want HUD to know and the community to know that we understand these are important priorities as well. So the first priorities, 2, really rose to the level of critical. They were lifted up throughout the community outreach and the development of the draft consolidated plan, and those are preserving existing single-family housing for low-income households and provide stable and affordable rental housing, again, for low-income households that prevents homelessness or helps someone who already is homeless get into housing. Then we have 4 important priorities. Those include ensuring safe rental housing, providing services for underserved groups, supporting property improvement efforts in our neighborhoods, which includes solutions related to public improvements that the neighborhood associations might want to see. And then finally, 4 draft desirable priorities, which include diversity of housing options, supporting economic development, advocating for programs that assist the homeless, and promoting violence prevention programs. So once we have identified our priorities, then HUD says, okay, what are your goals around these priorities? And we essentially when looking at our priorities, they really fell into 3 specific buckets: attainable and affordable housing, expanding access to public service grants, and neighborhood solutions, beautification, and improvement. Now, in the strategic plan, there is a 4th goal, and it is related to administration of HUD programs. And we have to have that in our strategic plan so that we can fund staff to administer and oversee the grant funding. So you'll see that in the strategic plan, but it's not presented this evening. So the next 3 slides, I'm going to show how the priorities work within the goals and then the outcomes that we expect over the next 5 years. And it's important to know that these outcomes are our best forecast based on the funding we receive today. That is what HUD's direction is to us when you write your consolidated plan. Look at your current year funding and just project that forward. So that's what we've done. So the first goal, the attainable and affordable housing goal, has 4 priorities in it, 2 of the critical priorities that we have, as well as 1 important and 1 desirable priority. The anticipated outcomes are based on the type of activities that we hope to fund over the next 5 years. These are staff recommendations. And due to the significance of this goal and the priorities included, this goal and these priorities are recommended to receive the highest amount of funding support throughout the 5-year period. And then when we get to the action plan, I'll kind of narrow in on 2025 for that. Then goal 2 is expanding access to our public service grants. This has one important priority and three desirable priorities. The goal for providing these resources is to really assist the most vulnerable in our community. These dollars, we hope, will assist over 1,200 persons and or households during the 5-year period. And then finally, our neighborhood solution beautification and improvement goal includes two important priorities, one of which is funding each of the 5 core neighborhoods to complete that public improvement project that we've talked about. So jumping from that 5-year look down to 2025. So the annual action plan specifically indicates how we will spend our funding in that year and the importance of aligning those projects and activities to support the priorities, goals, and outcomes of the consolidated plan. At the end of the 5 years, we have to show HUD that each year of our annual action plan, we supported the priorities we established for ourselves to meet those outcomes that we hope to achieve. So this is the draft budget for program year 2025. We have to, like I said, break this down into projects and activities. So we go from priorities, goals, and outcomes in the consolidated plan to projects, activities, and outcomes in the annual action plan. And each of these is tied, each of these projects is tied to a priority. I'm going to go through most of these in some detail. Some of this we talked about in the October Committee of the Whole meeting we were at, but we're going to reiterate some of this to help show why we narrowed down to these projects and activities. So the first is single-family home owner repair, supported by both the data that we collected for the plan and the outreach conducted with the community. The average age of a single-family home in the city is 65 years old. Managing home repairs on this age of housing can often place a cost burden on low-income families to the point if one major repair could mean they lose their home. So providing assistance to homeowners will help them protect and stabilize their largest asset, which contributes to generational wealth of the family, as well as preserving affordable housing in the city. This is a critical priority in the draft consolidated plan. The next is rental assistance. We all have seen a significant increase in rents over the last 4 years, and we know based on the census that at least 56% of our households in the city are renter households. So providing assistance to this low-income group became a critical priority in the draft plan. This was particularly happened because of the closure of the Housing Choice Voucher waitlist through the state. So contributing to this and recommending this funding helps us to provide that gap between the available resources and the number of people that need assistance. The next is that neighborhood enhancement. This includes both housing and code administration as well as the public improvement project for the core neighborhoods. The intent here is to stabilize property values through code administration, but also to allow the core neighborhoods of East Side, Edison, North Side, Stewart, and Vine, who all have a nonprofit 501c3 neighborhood association, the opportunity to address some type of public facility or public project within their neighborhood, either that residents have brought forward as a concern in the neighborhood or some type of public improvement that they want to see. And then finally, our public service grant funding. Over the last couple of years, staff has consistently heard from the Community Development Act Advisory Committee that they would like to provide funding to a wider array of public service providers. In the last 5 years, because of the consolidated plan, the way it was written, public service dollars went almost exclusively to youth programming. And they wanted to be able to branch out to help a wider range of of the population that might be in need. So over the next 5 years, we'd like to open up these public service grants and allow CDAC an opportunity to make recommendations to the City Commission on programs that go beyond youth. It could help seniors, it could help special needs populations, it could do violence prevention programs, it could do economic development programs. Public service dollars are really wide open with CDBG, so this is a good opportunity for CDAC to make a real impact with these funds. Also, if you've seen a map of our low and moderate income block groups in the city, you'll see that it has expanded beyond the core neighborhoods. Most of the city now is CDBG eligible, so these public service dollars will allow us to branch out a little more and help families throughout the city. Sherilyn's going to come up and do our next steps, taking us through the final planning portion of the consolidated plan and then our funding allocation process. Thank you. And I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. So that we keep in mind the next steps as we move forward. So the housing activities and the neighborhood solutions, those partnerships will be secured through a notice of funding opportunity and an RFP process. And so we plan to begin that RFP process as soon as the consolidated plan is approved. Now, the public service applications that process will begin later in the year in September. So I'll talk a little bit more about sort of the rationale and the why between those two. Also, you will see us back after we have approval, as we move forward, for some administrative updates and recommendations that will need to take place as a result of the change in the plan and administrative updates that will need to align. These will be things such as there will be a change in the public participation plan itself and the CDAC bylaws. And this will look to give you an idea of what that looks like. There will be a change in the HUD substantial amendments and the funding allocation basis. And then also there is a minor amendment that we need to do that actually defines minor amendments. So we'll come back to do that. And then to sort of play out this calendar that we've been working off of every year. So we are here in February today. February 17th at the business meeting, we will have a consent agenda item that requests that the 30-day public comment period for the 5-year consolidated plan be opened. And so when that gets open, we will receive all the public comments and we will include anything that needs to be included. The finalization of the plan must be delivered to HUD by May 15th. We usually aim for 3 to 5 days ahead of that, just in case there's any IT problems or anything comes up that we have enough time to actually get that in per the deadline. And then you'll see we have the NOFO and the RFP process beginning for the housing partners, and then the neighborhood solutions will be for the core neighborhoods. So they will be returning in their notice of funding plan. Then, as I mentioned, those public service dollars are put out a little bit longer, and that will take place in, I don't know if I have a pointer, but that will take place that you see in September starting. And the reason why that's starting a little later is, if you remember, HUD program years are July through June. And so we need to have approvals of everything to start the application process. So if we did program 2025 this year, basically 3 months, 2 months later, we would be gearing up for program year 2026. So what we're going to do this year, and this year only, is the applications for those public services will be an application that is attributed to funding for both program year 2025 and program year 2026. So that way we'll have one application for 2 funding years this year only, and we think that will help to avoid any community confusion as to which program year we're referring to. And so then for the housing partners, we will bring back a substantial amendment that will name those housing partners. We anticipate that coming back in August. And then we'll ride the year out and be on to our next year. This concludes our presentation to you guys.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Very nicely laid out. Just as a question, is this available or will it be available on the city website as well?
Thank you, thank you. Yes, so the entire consolidated plan, the entire draft consolidated plan will be located on our website. I think that is expected to be available tomorrow.
Super, that's great. Appreciate all the outreach.
When? Oh, it's not in the queue yet, so a couple days. Thank you.
Couple days yet. Okay, thank you. Questions, commissioners? Vice Mayor Hess.
Sure. One question. You know, we say CDAC a lot. We have our acronyms. I wonder if you might talk a little bit about CDAC and their role in the process, because I know that we need members on that committee, and this is your opportunity to recruit members for the CDAC.
Yeah, so thank you. The CDAC, it stands for Community Development Advisory Act Advisory Committee. And they are a group of community members who are referred by the neighborhood associations and or are filling an at-large seat, which would mean they live in a neighborhood in the city of Kalamazoo. They are really an extension to the neighborhood association and the neighborhoods as far as funding opportunities and communication with community development staff. They will be responsible for recommending the funding for all of those public service dollars. So they meet, the bylaws will change, but they will be meeting to review the applications, to do any necessary interviews with applicants. They will also be part of the reviewing and grading, scoring for funding the applications that are received. And then they also will do a sort of a biannual check-in with the subrecipients to see how things are going, where they're at in their agreement, if there's any assistance or recruiting that can be done. So they really operate as a source for, as mentioned in their name, advising as far as some of the funding recommendations, and then being an extension from the city to the neighborhoods, to the communities, to the neighborhoods, to the cities. So thank you. And we are accepting applications for some at-large seats.
Just briefly, you did mention just briefly the pit count, and I know that we use that to help here. And I know that we just did one, and that won't be available for a while. But do you think that the housing that happened during the cold, during the pit count, is going to affect that?
I'm sorry, could you reframe your question?
The housing that our unhoused had were in the hotel, for the hotel project, for that week of when it was so cold, when the pit count happened. Is that going to affect the final pit count because they were not on the street?
That's kind of a tough question. I would guess that it shouldn't that dramatically, but I suppose it could. But that was more of a temporary, hoteling, and it wasn't really that they they weren't really housed. So I don't think it would count. I don't think it would egregiously change the point in time count. Yeah.
It will change the point count in this way. The two categories are living in a place not meant for human habitation, in other words, unsheltered and sheltered. So our sheltered number in the pit count is going to go up dramatically from previous year because it's like we added 100 to 120 shelter beds. So folks who are staying in the shelter who would otherwise have been counted as unsheltered will now be counted as shelter. So that will make it difficult to do a year-over-year comparison of that count because, you know, each year you're saying, how are we doing in these different categories? Presumably, the category of unsheltered for the pit count that just happened will be much lower. That information, you know, will take many months before it's actually, you know, verified and published and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, still that entire group is considered people who don't have permanent housing. So that aggregate number between those two categories, you know, will still remain.
More thorough explanation. Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners? Yeah, Commissioner Cooney.
Thank you, Sean. I really admire how you reached out to try to get the priorities. I really think that was great, and I really like them. But this is 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. And back of the envelope, looks like we're getting about $8.5 million, which we could spend the first year. So I like the priorities that you laid out, but I just want to say that we're so short of what we need. It's just painful. It's not your fault. This is what we got. We have to do the best with what we got. And that's what you've done here. But I just want to be on record as saying this is pitiful because the needs are so great and we have so little amount of money which are threatening to be cut. So, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Commissioner Cooney. Other questions for Sherilyn or Judy? Okay, I've got a couple. So one question is that, and I've asked this to other folks, but I just want to absolutely verify it. We are in Region J, as identified by MISTA, you know, former prosperity zone for this 7-county housing planning undertaking. Mm-hmm. And there was state money allocated to this region in 2 different categories. One category, which was MISTA bond money or whatever, which, you know, there's no limitations about where that money can be used. The other money was state CDBG money. And at this point in our region, there's almost $11.5 million that is still not allocated or spent. I know our Kalamazoo County Land Bank possibly will be looking at some of that for some kind of out-county work. But is there any mechanism whatsoever that allows us as a PJ, a public jurisdiction, to use any of that state CDBG within our geographic area?
So currently, no. Entitlement communities aren't entitled to the CDBG state money. Now, the last sort of just larger group that I sat in, that state CDBG money is not getting allocated. And so there is, as part of the regional housing plan and the strategy and those that sit on that, there is communication to the state that that's not getting allocated, but it could be. It could be. And part of the reason it's not being allocated is because smaller communities who aren't familiar with federal funds don't necessarily just have the capacity to deal with these type of dollars just because they're available. And if the municipality doesn't have the capacity, they're not going to take the risk then to put it to another organization in their community who doesn't have the capacity. And so, as we've mentioned before, probably in most meetings where we talk about federal funds, these are tricky dollars. They carry a lot of requirements that that really nobody's been trained. And let's just dive down and read federal requirements and rather than just do the jobs that we love to do. So there is conversations happening to push back on, we could get monies on the street if you were to open that up.
If those dollars are not allocated, they will be lost to this region. They're not just going to sit there forever and ever. So there is going to be some time frame around that. I don't know if that's a federal rule that prohibits the use of state CDBG in APJ, or if that is a state rule. So I don't know what the foundation for that is, but you're right that that money is most likely to be used in areas that already have the infrastructure to process CDBG money, because reporting requirements are so particular and the monitoring requirements are so extensive, and you're more likely to have developers that are more experienced in areas of higher population concentration who are used to working with these kind of requirements as well. So anyway, I really, really hope that we don't lose that resource that is available to our regions. I don't know if there's anything I can help to do about that.
I 100% agree with that hope.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And those who are in that sort of that regional housing consortium are also relaying that. Because we do have smaller municipalities who are in the group, and they're saying, yeah, we know these are available, but we just don't have capacity to take them on. And so, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. So hopefully we'll at least keep talking about that. Another thing I know coming up, I think is March 14th is the next deadline as far as where the continuing resolution runs out for funding certain federal programs. I think HUD is in that category, where even for this year, the budget has not been finalized for the 24-25 fiscal year. So I presume we're going to be watching that in the next 6 weeks here to see what it looks like in terms of, will it be another continuing resolution? Will it be a wholly different budget, which could affect all the work you've done? And is there anything, do you think we can do, or is this just going to be a waiting game to see how that works out?
Yeah, so I did talk with our field agents about that, and the comment was sort of, it is a waiting game for them as it is for us. And so, as pretty much always recommended, reach out to your Congress and put in your request and make it known sort of the struggle that we're dealing with and why it's important that those get moved forward.
One thing that might be helpful out of that is if there's just a very short handful of bullet points, 4 bullet point, just educational piece that could be shared with folks like Bill Heisige's office, who's our representative, or even our senators in the state. That would be helpful if we had something like that we could share in our direct communications relative to the importance and just some of the particulars about the work that gets funded by this. So if there's something like that, it'd be simple to put together, that'd be helpful. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that might be something that would come out of that regional housing strategy. I would have to talk with our attorneys to see what abilities we have, because there are some requirements that we are bound to as well if it looks like we're doing any sort of lobbying efforts.
Right, yeah. So I know that you can't do lobbying efforts, but if there was some simple piece of information that was available, this is what CDBG or HOME does in the Kalamazoo community, then any individual up here or anywhere could just decide to grab that piece of, here's the work that it does, just a pure reporting on the part of the city, and then use that information for their own personal lobbying efforts. So hopefully there wouldn't be a problem with that. So in talking about the action plan here, are we talking about the July 25 through July 26 action plan when you're talking about?
The July 2025 to June 2026.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So that's the action plan we're talking about for that fiscal year. Okay. Yeah. Coming up in a few months. And then just one last thing is, what you're doing obviously a 5-year strategic plan, and you mentioned just a little bit, but over the course of that time, things could change. What is the amendment process for that strategic plan then over the course of those 5 years?
Yeah, so that's part of what will come back as far as those administrative. And so I did talk about sort of the funding allocation basis. So we're going to try to run that through the amendments that we're going to ask for, because it really would be based on a percentage, which is what we do right now with all of our annual action plans. Is according to the timelines, we often have to put all of the outreach for those before the dollars are confirmed. So basically what we'll do is the awards are based on what we get, and then we just slide the awards on a sort of a pro rata basis. And so we would do the same sort of strategy with the consolidated plan, but that would come back as one of the administrative changes that we're going to recommend.
Okay, super. Thank you very much. Anything else, colleagues? All right, thank you. Appreciate you, all the work you do in this. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Back to you, Manager Rissma.
All right, that concludes our work session this evening.
Thank you again. So now is the opportunity for commissioner comments. Just as a reminder for anyone who's tuning in, there's also an opportunity for commissioner comments at our business meeting this evening at 7. Anyone wanting to comment for this good of the order? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned.